Imagine me taking a long sip of water, preparing you for what is to come. If you plan on timing this sermon, now is the time to look at your watch. Tomorrow night is October 25th, my love. I want to make it nice for you. Tomorrow night, Ruth said to Jack, I'm going to make you a nice steak when you get home from work. We had a wonderful meal, you said. Flowers on the table, great wine, everything. Ruth asked, what else can I do for you? It's been a long week, Jack thought aloud. Maybe you could draw a nice hot bath for me in the tub? Well, she might have thought that just a little out of character. She went to draw up the bath. I took my time getting undressed. I fixed it up with lots and lots of soap for bubbles, and I eased myself into the water. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes passed. 15 minutes passed. My wife called upstairs to ask how I was doing. Just fine, I hollered. 20 minutes. 25 minutes. 30 minutes. Finally, my wife called up to ask what on earth I was doing. It's October 25th, Jack responded. I can't get out of the water for 3 more days. I can't get out of the water for 3 more days. That was the best line in my entire sermon. Better let me explain. In April 1943, Jack Hewson joined the United States Navy. In October 1944, Jack found himself on a destroyer escort that fought like a battleship, the USS Samuel B. Roberts in the Philippine Sea. When a large contingent of the Third Fleet broke off in pursuit of other enemy ships, the Samuel B. Roberts, along with other small, slow escort ships, was left alone to face the entirety of the Japanese center force. Outnumbered nearly 2-1 against battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, enemy ships with weaponry more than 3 times larger and more powerful. The Samuel B. Roberts threw the only Hail Moses that it could. Attack was the command over the radio, and attack they did. The small destroyer escort got so close to those larger Japanese ships that they could use their torpedoes, their short-range weapons, so close that the biggest enemy guns couldn't tilt down low enough to fire upon them. This effort sunk 2 enemy ships before the Samuel B. Roberts was itself sunk, dumping its sailors into the sea. An 18-year-old boy then, Jack survived an emotional trial that few will ever endure, and his fight was only beginning. The ship sinking, Jack jumped into the pool of oil and fire that was now the Philippine Sea. Along with several other sailors, they found a life raft that was cut free, and they embraced then the difficult decision to help the injured and the wounded into their raft, returning those who were in good health back into the water. 72 hours these sailors spent in the ocean, losing friends hourly to dehydration and to shark attack before finally they were rescued. Jack Hewson survived and settled in Seattle with his wife Ruth for a wonderful life. Jack, we honor your service, and we recognize on this day the heroism that you try so hard to deflect. Now that we understand the story, we can laugh along with you and with your beloved Ruth at the thought of you remaining in the bathtub for 3 days to commemorate that battle. I can't get out of the water. I can't get out of the bath for another 3 days, he said. I first heard Jack's story not through the wonderful documentary put together by the History Channel, spectacular though it was, but through Temple's own Veterans History Project. In the year 2000, Congress began allocating funding to begin collecting the first-hand accounts of our veterans. So often they realized we speak about war in terms of numbers of troops, numbers of weapons, numbers of casualties. The truth about war lies not in the numbers, but in the lived human experience of each and every soldier. Hundreds of thousands of veterans have now told of their experiences, creating an invaluable database for scholars and for the next generation. This year, the rabbis at Temple de Sinai have begun empowering our veterans to participate. And in doing so, we have heard some of the most incredible stories. Admiral Herb Bridge shared his rise through naval service and his willingness to speak truthfully and thoughtfully for what he knew was right. Fellow Navy man David Epstein related the most incredible stories about the submarine on which he served. Nothing, it turns out, has the power to ruin operational secrecy like a piano on a submarine. Army man Joel Buxbaum told us what it was like to play baseball for the Army, entertaining troops as they were about to head over to Korea. Dr. Fred Cassard, Skip Kotkin, Samuel Buttercly, Bob Bridge, Bob Cantor, Art Siegel, Alan McCall, and many others have participated and shared their stories. These stories I tell you now are not meant as an extended commercial for the Veterans History Project, though I do hope that hearing these you will allow your family's stories to be heard. Nor is this an effort only to honor those who honored our country. As Americans, we do owe a debt of gratitude to our veterans. And as Jews, we owe them an extra debt of gratitude for making it normal to be Jewish. When these men served in the armed forces, when people serve men and women in the army today, they wear their Jewish identities quite literally around their necks. And whether they intend to or not, they serve as ambassadors for the entirety of the Jewish people. Last names, dog tags, special food on Passover, the occasional harsh word or fisticuff when words of bigotry are expressed lets everybody know that a Jew is in their midst. Working side by side for a common goal, soldiers learn to see the humanity in each other, not the external label. This lesson carried over into civilian life, and Jews became more accepted in American society than ever before. There were other factors, to be sure, but really knowing another Jewish person proved crucial for our success, our acceptance today. It is normal to be Jewish because these people and others not in the military stood up and stood out as Jews. Today, the progressive Jewish community is no longer standing up, and we're no longer standing out. We are beginning to fade as an identifiable minority, and it comes with a cost to our community. Let me make sure that I'm clear before you begin to tune me out if you haven't done so already. This isn't that Rosh Hashanah sermon that you know and love asking you to become more involved in the synagogue. If you've been to a 40-person Torah study, or perhaps I should say Torah debate on a Shabbat morning, if you've been to Simchat Torah services or Shmuzaki or Pride Shabbat or our Latke dinner with hundreds of people, if you've stepped foot in this room on a Sunday morning during our religion school program, you know exactly how vibrant Reform Judaism can be. The problem isn't involvement. The problem is even greater. Its solution even easier. We are fading as an identifiable minority, and it comes with a cost to our community. One of the prices that we pay is a decrease in our own happiness. As Jews, as a minority living in America, there is a certain amount of pleasure we derive from meeting other Jewish people. Jewish connections while traveling, Hanukkah together on a cruise ship, norovirus together on a cruise ship. Jewish connections while traveling are especially fun. My apologies. Wherever you go, there's always someone Jewish, at least the song goes, I won't sing anymore. It is true in our workplaces, as it is in our schools. It is fun to find other Jews. When cubicle decorations take on a Christmas theme in December, other Jews become easier to spot. But oftentimes, we're left with that awkward conversation over lunch or at the water cooler. We think someone might be Jewish, and we want to ask, but we don't want to intrude on their personal life. But we'd really love to be around other Jewish people. But it's so hard to tell these days from somebody's last name. But we're fading as an identifiable minority. And one of the prices that we pay is a decrease in our own happiness. We are happier, existentially happier, when we find other Jews outside of the synagogue walls. When enough Jews go to the same grocery store that the cashier wishes you a Happy New Year. When you're surrounded by enough Jews that going for your morning coffee becomes a Jewish social experience. When other Jews are doing the same volunteer project, putting their prayers into action, it becomes a fulfilling Jewish experience and not just one of a human experience. It makes us happy. We really like finding other Jews. But we don't always make it easy for them to find us. We are fading as an identifiable minority, but there is an easy solution. As we start this new year, 5774, make a point to stand up and to stand out as a Jewish person. Be visible. Try wearing a piece of Jewish-themed jewelry or a kippah on your head. Try throwing a few Yiddish words or a few Hebrew words into conversation just to see who notices. Bring back that old camp t-shirt. Read a Jewish book not on your Kindle where nobody can see it, but in hardcover form when you go get that morning coffee. Stand up, stand out, and make being Jewish as normal for the next generation as it is for us. We are fading as an identifiable minority. And another price that we pay is increasing distance from Judaism as a religion. If I had $1 for every opportunity I had to sit with somebody who said, I'm Jewish, but I'm not religious, our high holiday campaign, let me assure you, would look very, very different. Religion, at least here in Seattle, has something of a bad name. Whether you've read Patricia O'Connell Killen's work, Religion and Public Life in the Pacific Northwest, or whether you've just listened to Rabbi Wiener for 5 minutes talk about life in Jewish Seattle, you have probably heard the description, the none zone. When asked their religious identification for the sake of surveys, more people answer none in the Pacific Northwest than anywhere else in the country. A piece of that puzzle, anecdotally evident from my conversations with people, is that religion itself has a bad name. When one hears the word religious, all too often their mind goes to the extremes. A religious person is a televangelist greeting you on Sunday morning television, not the rabbi of your progressive congregation. A religious person is that man handing out literature while you try to show friends the market, not the woman out for a walk with her family on a Sunday afternoon. Religious people cause sectarian violence in Egypt and in Iraq. They don't work for marriage equality or to end homelessness in our community. I'm a religious person. Every single person here, by definition, has to be a religious person. And it's about time that we help our community. It's about time that we help ourselves understand that religious people need not be one side of a coin, zealot or secularist, but that we can be multifaceted gems. We're fading as an identifiable minority, but there is an easy solution. As we start this new year, 5774, make a point to stand up and to stand out as a Jew. Be heard. Your actions don't need to change. We do Jewish each and every day. When you give tzedakah, time and money, to those who are in need, it is a Jewish action. Label it so that others might know why you do so. When we choose the foods we put into our mouth, that we want animals to be treated as we want them to be, it is a Jewish action. We just need to label it so that others might know. When we're acting to take food, when we're acting to take soup to a family who grieves, when we go to visit somebody who is ill, when we take our elderly neighbor's groceries in, when we play a game on Shabbat with family, we're living our religious values. We just need to label them as such. Stand up stand out, and make being Jewish as normal for the next generation as it has been for us. We are fading as an identifiable minority, and one of the prices that we pay is increasing ignorance. Sometimes that ignorance is harmless. Do you remember the first time that somebody said to you, "I've never met a Jew before"? A particular favorite of mine happened when I was in rabbinical school. I pulled into a gas station in Cincinnati, Ohio, seat of Reformed Jewish history in this country, and a man looked up from putting gas in his car, and I could see the question forming on his face. Watch at the ready, I began to tell him the time when he said, "You're Jewish, right? I've never met another Jewish person. Can I ask you a question?" In my youthful exuberance, I was pretty sure that I was the greatest rabbinic sage to ever walk this earth. Talmud, Mishnah, the esoteric medieval poetry of Judah Halevi, I've got this. "What," he asked me, "do the Jewish people think about Adam Sandler?" A picture of the look on my face would have been priceless. Sometimes, though, that ignorance isn't nearly as endearing. I was on a tennis court when my doubles partner told me that we really could use one of those little Jewish kids who runs up and gets the ball from the net so that we didn't have to. Less endearing still is when a very large man with very large swastika tattoos moved into a Capitol Hill apartment building this year. Sometimes that ignorance manifests as anti-Semitism, as for the University of Washington student who returned to his dorm to find a swastika and the word Jew scrawled into his door last year, or for a member of our tribe, our 20s and 30s auxiliary, who had a mezuzah torn from his Kirkland doorpost, the scroll shredded and left on his doorstep. We are fading as an identifiable minority, and there is an easy solution. As we start this new year, 5774, make a point to stand up, to stand out as a Jewish person, be visible and be heard. Perhaps these events would have been different if a Jewish person had stood up or stood out along the perpetrator's life journey. If they had served in the military with other Jews fighting beside them and keeping them safe, things might have been different. If an identifiably Jewish person held the door for them, or helped them change a tire, or simply gave them a smile on a bad day, things might have been different. Let me be clear. True hatred and true anti-Semitism cannot be stopped by actively knowing a Jewish person. Coffee with a man who shot Pamela Wechter at the Jewish Federation 5 years ago would not have stopped him. A conversation in the hallway with Adolf Hitler would have done nothing to change the course of history. But being visible and being heard, letting others know that we are Jewish, can stop a Jewish joke in its tracks. It can stop stereotypes and assumptions and misinformation just by continuing to be the people that we are. Stand up, stand out, and make being Jewish as normal, as safe for the next generation as it is for us. I had the pleasure of being part of a wonderful wedding ceremony just 5 days ago. During the toast, the mother of the groom, an immigrant from Russia, related a sobering tale about his upbringing. She said that one of their first priorities upon moving to America was to enroll their son in Hebrew school so that he could have the Jewish education that they were forbidden in the former Soviet Union. Things were going well, she said, so well, in fact, that the groom, then a child of 6, began to sing a Hanukkah song on the walk home from synagogue. Terrified, the mother pulled him into an alley that no others might hear, until she realized that this was exactly the reason they moved to America. It was not so long ago in our history that being marked as a Jewish person was a bad thing. And it is undoubtedly a sign of how far we have come in American life that I'm able to stand before you, asking you to stand up, to stand out as a Jewish person in 57-74 America. In no small part, it was knowing, really knowing another Jewish person that proved crucial for our success and our acceptance in this country. It is normal to be Jewish because our veterans and others not in the military stood up and stood out as Jews. We owe it to ourselves and to the next generation to do the same. Stand up, stand out, and make being Jewish as normal for the next generation as it is for us.